Welcome to The Next Chapter, a show about how to move your life forward and what comes next. I'm your host, Carrie Pena, co-founder of the Center for Positive Media. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Pena, and this is the Next Chapter podcast. With me in studio, Jerame Mudick, who is the founder and owner of Reconnect, which is an intentional wellness center, booming business. You're an all-star entrepreneur, and I'm so glad to have you here because there's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
I probably didn't do justice describing your place. So tell folks first what it is that you do at Reconnect.
So our mission is to guide you back to yourself. So it's a place for internal growth, and we take the modalities and practices that we have to a level that's more of personal development. A lot of people associate our place as more of mental health versus physical, because of our teaching of breath work and how to manage stress in the present moment as it's happening. So we do cold water therapy, infrared sauna, compression therapy, red light therapy, breath work, and meditation.
Okay, so for folks who are listening and they're thinking, what the heck's this guy talking about? So cold water therapy, start there. What do you do?
So cold water therapy, it's anything that's below 50 degrees. We have 3 different tubs, one at 46, one at 33, and one at 35, basically.
And the breath work. It is so much more than you sitting down with people. I mean, this is why a lot of people are coming to you.
Yes.
Is because you've made a name for yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
That you're doing something there. It's almost like spiritual.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually what we hear most often. And anyone who's been through a lot in their lives when it comes to PTSD, or if you're experiencing a certain disease, or your day-to-day battles that everyone has, they would say that coming into our space is more spiritual because it teaches them how to connect to themselves. Pun not intended. That's just what they end up saying, is that I feel reconnected to myself and my source of strength and power and faith, whatever it is for that person. They tend to end up finding it in there. And I think it's because the environment, for one, but our support, like our staff and how we support them in the moment. I try and train my staff on just how to hold space and how to listen and how to be there for someone. And obviously it's going to help them in just their day-to-day life and being there for friends and family. But in these moments we look at, most people don't have that in their lives. And so we try to create a space where they could.
I'm just fascinated, with your story that because you were a trainer, right? Mm-hmm. That you started as a trainer and you've built this very successful model in a very saturated space, health and wellness. Mm-hmm. And you did it by following a plan that was very intentional,
yes.
Right? In business, you're growing. You guys said 10,000 people have come through. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is working. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we feel like, I got to expand. I got to make other locations. Talk about how you've really built with intentionality.
Well, for one, listening to what the people want. This mission that I'm on is not for me, it's for everyone else. And I believe in a life of service, and that God gave me this mission to serve it to the people so that I could give to them. And that's just kind of how I've always lived my life. And with this mission, it took it to a much deeper level for me. And that's where my fulfillment comes in. But staying on track with doing everything with intention, it really comes down to a lot of prayer and then listening to the members. And having a lot of conversation, talking to them and reviewing with my staff. Hey, how's everyone doing with this? What are you guys hearing? You know what I mean? Trying to really understand the ins and the outs of what everyone is looking for, where they finding the impact, where do they not, and where my staff struggles and where are they finding the impact. And so every decision I make is based off of that. So I was going to open more locations, and then pulling back on that came down to people need more of a space, a learning center. They need more classes. People want the knowledge I have in my head that I've gained over the last 12 years. They want it, and I need to have a space where I can just teach it and have other people that I've learned from come in and share that knowledge as well. And so that's why instead of opening more locations, it's just like, hey, let's just expand. Hopefully one day I'll own the entire building. That'd be awesome.
We're going to manifest right here and now, right?
I am. I'm trying to manifest that. So to just expand into the unit next to us and take our education to the next level to where we can give people what they actually want. And because I know that I, for many years, kept all the knowledge that I have to myself, and I would just teach it here and there. And I didn't really know how to express it to the masses. And after a lot of reconditioning of my mind and how to relay this information and seeing it unfold in my own business right now, I can go in there and watch my staff and they're doing things that I want them to do because that's how I would do it. I'm like, it's working.
Do you ever sit back and think, wow, this is crazy that I've become so successful in this field when growing up, you have said and acknowledged you weren't the healthiest kid. You were bullied a lot because you weren't the healthiest kid. And I read that you had written our producer a note saying you weren't the smartest kid in the room. So you had an uphill battle. Some of it reminds me of, I mean, everyone who knows me knows I'm a tad bit obsessed with David Goggins. I just find his whole story fascinating. But some of it parallels that you had this uphill battle, and at a certain point you had to make the decision for yourself.
Right.
Of where you wanted to land in that space. Talk about your upbringing.
Yeah. So I don't even know where to start on that, except I'll just kind of jump into what you said, which is, yeah, it was always me. I was the class clown because that's how I coped with my emotions. Right. And my family was great. I have a very unique family. My mom and dad divorced when we were very young, and my dad never left. It was always like as if they were still married, just not together.
Like co-parenting.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It was amazing. I have no complaints on that at all. I mean, yeah, my dad is ex-military, so we had a lot of strict ways of disciplining us, but I will say it definitely worked because those are the things that you remember. And especially in the moments of difficulty, you know, what are the things that helped you stay grounded? So, as I was growing up, I was really, really thin and I didn't really exercise. I played sports here and there, but my brother, he was the all-star athlete. So he always took that limelight, and I just went into the artistic realm and I did drawing and painting and all that. And so, yeah, that left me being bullied a lot, and also left me being bullied a lot because my brother was also the guy who could beat everyone up. So then when he wasn't around, it'd be very easy to pick on me. So I had bully every year of my life as I grew up, but I always was the guy that would try and stop violence. And so once I got into bodybuilding and getting into martial arts, then I used it as a way to do that, to stop violence. And it worked. Like I got in the middle of a lot of fights growing up,
You were like the anti-bully then.
I would absolutely step in the middle, and I always felt protected that God had my back and I wasn't going to be hurt. And thank God I never did get hurt. So,
how did that impact you when you were going through it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it shattered my confidence all the time. Absolutely. I had no confidence. My confidence would come out only in dancing. So I got really into dancing and popping and crumping and all that. It was the only way I could really express myself freely without judgment. And so I was that kid that was, there was a party going on, I was the first one on the dance floor. And that was the only time where you would say, man, that guy's so confident. But any other time in my life, there was no confidence at all ever. So like talking to the girl, nope, choke, sweaty palms, But dancing, that was the one thing that really was my opportunity every time to express myself fully.
And when did you find that this was going to be your journey in health and fitness?
It really just started with me I didn't want to get bullied anymore, and I wanted to stop bullying. So I figured, hey, if I start lifting weights and I can put on some muscle, and it was tough. Like I was eating a ton of food and nothing was working. It just was a time-based thing. And then one year it just started sprouting, and I blew up, and I got really big. I grew really fast. I think it was over 30 pounds in a year, and my waist was still 28 inches. It was like I unlocked my genetics somehow. And I just met a bodybuilder who came from Texas, 290-pound monster, and he needed a training partner, and I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. I said, hey man, I'll work out with you. And he's thinking, are you sure? You're a really thin dude, you're going to keep up with me. And so I did. And that's when I unlocked my ability to be disciplined, and all the things that I felt like I probably struggled with my parenting with my dad, or like how he parented us, with trying to be disciplined on those things, and how I would fail repeatedly, but I could watch my brother be so successful at it. And I think it was me finally applying all those things, because you see what you choose to see. And so for me, I would see those things, but I would choose to see the bad of it all the time as a kid, of like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do, So once I started to gain control of my own mind, growing up into lifting weights, it really became this thing of, I can be the person who I think I'm supposed to be. And I want to be like a superhero. I want to be that person that's going to stop all the violence. I want to be that person that rips the gun out of someone's hand and just says, this is over, And so I started to become that. And I got up to 210 pounds, and I was big, and I started competing in bodybuilding, and no one ever bullied me ever again.
How do you think that you're able to take that approach into your work today? Because what I find fascinating is that you are teaching health, wellness, fitness, but you're also teaching that in relationship with the mind.
Yes. And that is actually, I think, what also separates Reconnect from everything else as well, is Reconnect really is based off of my own journey, and it's my self-discovery, and it's my own personal mission. I found myself doing these practices. I went down to break down, who am I? What am I doing here on this earth? Like, what does God need from me? And I started just peeling back the layers. And this is with no education on this stuff at all. Like I would read books here and there, but I always struggled to finish them. And that's another thing I started to notice on my follow through. I struggled on my follow through. The only thing I was ever truly consistent in was bodybuilding. Like you could have me diet for a year straight and I would never skip off my diet. I would never skip a workout. I was 100% dedicated to the grind and I would never stop. And so that also helped me transition into being a business owner, because once I unlocked that part about myself, I was able to see, hey, if I can do that, I can do anything else, because bodybuilding, most people would say it's the hardest sport because you can't mess up on those things. You were competing against yourself at all times. And you're the only one who can decide what happens, you know? So I started to apply that same thinking into all facets of life and managing stress. And so that's when I started to discover looking for ways to heal my body with this collagen disorder that I have, which just leaves my body inflamed 24/7. And so I started looking into Dr. Joe Dispenza and Wim Hof, and I found those guys, and they were teaching people, not just doing it themselves, but teaching people how to unlock those areas, like how to become superhuman. And so I finally was like, that's it, because I've unlocked some of these things in myself already. I just don't know how to apply them to everything else in my life. I am trying to discover it, right? So I'm peeling back. I'm trying to meditate. Doesn't make sense. Trying to do breath work doesn't make sense. And then you hear someone say it the right way, and then it clicks.
Yes. For people who are intrigued by, what you're doing there at your Reconnect facility, and it's working for a lot of people, what would you say are like the 3 top things that people should try if they were going to look into these types of practices? What are the 3 top things that you think can truly be transformative for us?
That's a tough one. So I would say, getting in cold water would probably be number 1, because getting in cold water, and it has to be cold enough to take your breath away. It can't just be, ooh, this is kind of chilly. Like it needs to be cold enough to give your nervous system a wake up call. So what happens in the cold water, it becomes this, I have this quote that is, it won't give you what you want, it will give you what you need. And the reason that is because it pulls you so deeply into the present moment. It teaches you so much about yourself, and anyone watching will learn a lot about you as well, because how you respond to that emotional vibration that the water creates inside of your body is how you typically handle a lot of levels of stress. So if you are used to biting down and just grinding it out, you'll see someone just stiffen up and, and they're holding their breath the whole time. And you say, okay, so this person most likely, every time that they experience that same vibration in a conversation with someone, they do the same thing. Maybe it's with their spouse and they just start to tighten up, they tense their core and they're holding their breath and not breathing well, and they're a ticking time bomb, right? Or the opposite happens. Some people just start crying immediately. And you say, okay, so something with that, it triggers inside of them to say, it's time to let this out. So everything when it comes to the water, it's increasing your level of awareness. And I think that is the most important thing. It's actually a big part of why we do what we do. So getting your awareness tied into it, but then also your breathing. So this ties into the cold water as well, is that you start to assess your own breathing and you realize how your breathing can control your heart rate, can control your response. So cold water, number 1. And it doesn't have to be like you're just getting in an ice bath. You can even put your hands in ice buckets. Like I've done this at like seminars where just put your hand in freezing cold ice buckets, because it's going to have this similar response of, oh, that's uncomfortable, especially once it hits a few seconds and the blood's already pulled away and it's kind of stopped right there. You're going to feel that need. I want to get my hands out. But that right there, when you start to breathe and calm your nervous system, you're starting to tap in deeper to yourself in the moment. You can relax and the blood will just start to just settle, So breathing would be the second thing for sure. So if you were to assess your breathing on a daily, that's very important. I would say that's a big part of why I want to release this app too, is to get people to connect to their breath each and every day and do some form of breath awareness, right? Because that's going to be helpful.
What role? So you listed off your 2 top ones, and then is like nutritional a big part of what you think is important as well?
So this is a tough one. So I would say exercise. Exercise after that. And the reason I say that is because this also kind of falls into a faith thing, when you start to do things that are disciplined and good for you and you make them a consistent basis, everything else tends to fall in line. So I look at that the same thing with faith. It's very much the same thing. You can't just show up clean and then get in the shower.
Right.
So
So for you, how does this feel, this next chapter for you? Your business is growing. People are seeking out your knowledge and you're freely giving the knowledge. I thought that was interesting that you said, because a lot of times people want to bottle it up. It's like they want to charge $9.99 if someone wants to get, a thing. It's like, okay, well, what good is it if we just keep it all inside?
Right.
So what does this next chapter feel like for you?
Exciting and scary. And it's scary because I'm going to be peeling back a lot more layers of myself that I've kind of I've kept hidden inside of me. And that's the scary part is, and I have my staff and my manager, they're always just like, share this and share this and share this. And I'm always, oh. So now I know it's time. It's time. And it was the same thing when I opened Reconnect. I knew that the vision came through and it was time. It was time to do this no matter what, even though the whole world was shut down and everyone was scared and we know what was going on. It was like, no, this is God's timing. I have to do this right now, because as soon as I open this up, everyone's going to be looking at health in a different manner. So with this next step and next chapter that I'm doing right now, it's the same thing. People are more conscious of how they feel. They're looking into health from a different angle. People are getting into breath work and all these practices that the Eastern side of the world have been doing forever. and now we're starting to look at.
We've stumbled on some great new thing.
It's brand new, right? And so, but a lot of that stuff is, I think, how it's taught. And that's why I want to be offering up certifications for my breathing techniques and my cold water immersion. I want to dive into that to give people that information and to teach it the way I think that it should be taught, and not just me, but, thousands of people so far agree the same thing. And so that's the exciting part, is that it's like, okay, we get to give people more. And I love giving. I absolutely love that, because when I'm doing that, I'm feeling fulfilled because I know I'm doing what I'm being asked to do.
Well, I am so happy for you and your growth. You're a good person.
Thank you.
And I just think it's so beautiful when you see someone who is successful and giving back with that success. So where can people find out more? TheReconnectLife.com or our Instagram, The Reconnect. Everything is pretty much The Reconnect Life. That's the easiest way to find us. And then my personal tag is just my name, Jerame Mudick. I think you're going to be so great on an app. If people are listening to this and not watching, he's very animated. And so that makes for someone good to be teaching on an app. Thank you. I love that. That's the Italian.
Thank you. Right? It is. It comes out. A lot of hand gestures, a lot of expression through the body.
You're awesome, Jerame. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for listening and watching The Next Chapter. I'm Carrie Pena.